Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman on midweekpolitics.com.
Welcome back to Midweek Politics. I'm David Pakman. Please catch up with us on YouTube and on Facebook, youtube.com/midweekpolitics, facebook.com/midweekpolitics. We've got the new fan page going on Facebook, Lewis. It's blowing up. People are loving it. And also want to mention our voicemail line is up, 219-2-DAVID-P, 219-2-DAVID-P. And I actually have a preview from a voicemail that we'll be getting to later. This is just a one-liner, and we'll get to these later. And people flooding the phones. Take a listen.
I think your show is ridiculous.
Okay, so we'll get to that full one later, and also a bunch of others. Part 2 of my interview with Governor Deval Patrick of Massachusetts. Take a listen. Plenty more. President Barack Obama came up and in the last few days of the Coakley campaign attempted to...
You are absolutely determined to talk about
something.
the
Coakley
campaign, aren't you?
We're off of it. I just reference how Barack Obama plays into this. How long have you known the president?
Gosh, I think about 15 years now.
What would you say in this very small sample of time that he's been president has been his biggest success, if you had to just pick one? And I know it might be tough to just pick one, but if we could only pick one.
Well, healthcare is huge. Healthcare reform is huge, and of course, for us here in the Commonwealth, it's very familiar because it's really built on our model. But to accomplish something that numbers of presidents over decades have tried to do and haven't, I think is a terrific political accomplishment, to be sure, but also an enormously important contribution to the betterment of this country.
What would you say your biggest success has been in this first term?
Well, actually, I think implementing healthcare reform here in Massachusetts. Remember, it was enacted before I took office, and the date of implementation began the day I took office. And we have hundreds of thousands of adults and children who had no health insurance who do today. 97.5% of our residents have health insurance today. There's not another state that can touch us. I'm also very, very proud of the work we've done in education, both in terms of the student achievement. We're #1 in the nation and have been for each of the last 3 years. And the ed reform bill, which was difficult but important and gives us some tools to really get at this achievement gap, which has persisted as long as we've been on a path of improving the public schools.
I know you may be hesitant to start pointing out your failures the day after you launch your re-election campaign, but what has been the biggest failure during your first term?
Well, I mean, there's certainly some frustrations. You know, I didn't count on a global economic collapse, and that has slowed down some things that we wanted to do. It hasn't put us off our agenda.
But everybody, all governors dealt with that. I mean,
well,
specifically...
but still, that's a great frustration. You know, we have been maintaining our commitment to local aid, for example, but without being, and we've given cities and towns some additional tools so that they can cut their costs and raise revenues. But that combination of tools and the ability of the state to keep up with local aid has not been enough to bring property taxes down, which is something that I really feel strongly about.
I had that question. You know,
yeah.
where I have the small little condo in town. It's not a crazy property tax bill, but it's gone up every year since I've owned the place.
Right.
And it's not the ideal situation.
Right.
I know a lot of other people, our cameraman, for example, here, who he complains to me all the time about that property tax bill at his place. And what can be done there? I know Howie Carr recently asked you, where's his property tax cut?
Right.
Any thoughts about, if you are reelected, where that might go?
Well, I still think it's important to try to get control of property tax because it's fundamentally regressive, and it's particularly hard on people on, I mean, due respect, but on seniors and folks on fixed income or people who are out of work, for example. And, you know, I know that those city and town leaders are dealing with and the dual pressure, same sort of thing I'm feeling at a different scale, where folks say, I want this tax to come down, but I don't want any of the services to be affected, right? You're not saying, I'm happy to put out my own fire or, you know, dig my own latrine and that sort of thing.
The latrine I might dig, fires I'd probably call 911.
But I think that, you know, we did what we could in terms of giving cities and towns these tools to get their costs down and to raise revenues in different ways than through the property tax. I think there's more work that has to be done with cities and towns, particularly around municipal health care costs and more efficient ways of dealing with that. We had a proposal to bring cities and towns into the state. It's called the GIC, the state insurance system, and that has saved millions of dollars in those cities and towns that have come in. But the threshold for getting in is so high that it's been hard for some cities and towns to do. You remember when we proposed the casino bill, the notion was to direct much of that revenue, I don't think it was all of it, to property tax relief, and that proposal didn't succeed. I'm going to look at the speaker's proposal to see if there's some opportunities there. But that's, it's the point I've been making is we've done a lot. We did what we said we were going to do, but we have work to finish. And that's what a second term is about. It's not a reward for the first. It's about finishing what we started, and getting at property tax is one of them.
In the last minute we have left here, and I know you have to go, gay marriage. The gay marriage perspective nationally, when you took office in 2007 to now, has changed dramatically. I mean, we had hundreds of years where gay marriage was not legal in any state. And then during this short period of time that you've been governor, we've had a number of states start allowing that. Do you think Massachusetts, which kind of led the way in that, has the gay marriage issue been resolved, if there can be such a thing, in Massachusetts?
I think it's over here.
You think it's over here?
I think it's over here. I think that marriage equality is here to stay, and I think it should be.
Where do you see it going nationally? I think now 5, 6, or 7 is where we're at. Out of 50, if you're reelected, by the end of that second term, where would you like to see?
I don't know. I mean, I know where. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I know where I'd like to see it go, which is, I think there's some things government does well and some things government doesn't do well, and I think that most of the time when government tries to make or intrude in the most intimate decisions in people's lives, it doesn't do a very good job. And choosing whether you can marry the person you love is something that I think the government ought to just be out of. And that's really the fundamental for my support for marriage equality. I think the court got it right, and I think we discovered after a year or two of having marriage equality here in the Commonwealth that the sky didn't fall and the ground didn't open up and swallow everybody up, and it was absolutely no threat to my heterosexual marriage or anybody else's. And it didn't mean it wasn't a blood fight during the Constitutional Convention, but I think being able to make that case to people and show individuals, show representatives and senators by introducing their own constituents who just wanted to be left alone, just wanted to have that private dimension of their own life and choices left alone, was incredibly powerful. So I'm really proud that we were able to preserve marriage equality here. And I think, that we are a young country. We are a remarkable country in the sense of our demonstrated ability to reinvent ourselves and to continue to test the tension between our ideals and our reality. And the leadership that I hungered for before President Obama, and the reason I worked so hard in this campaign, is because I want the kind of leadership that is aspirational, that continues to call the question about how we close the gap between our reality and our ideals. And I think when we think about questions of equality at all levels and in all dimensions, it makes it harder and harder to want to inject the government into questions as intimate as whom you choose to marry. So I'm hopeful that the country will move in the direction of Massachusetts, and I'm proud that Massachusetts is able to show that leadership.
Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, thank you. I hear you brought Howie Carr a baseball bat. Next time, bring me something, and I'll have something for you, and it'll be great.
All right, but the next time will be sooner than the interim between these last two.
We'll hold you to it. We'll talk to Alex about it.
All right, good.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Great to speak to Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, and thanks for him for doing it. Midweek Politics is brought to you in part by Jackson & Connor, classically modern men's apparel in Northampton, Massachusetts on the second floor of Thorne's Marketplace, and by DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at difdesign.com. To find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics, visit midweekpolitics.com.